Did you say you wanted to learn how to make a planet shader? Well, you've come to the right place. Start out by opening up a new blend file and keeping the default cube. Let's add a subsurface modifier to it though. And I'm going to bump it up to 5 because I like it nice and smooth. You could probably get away with 4. Shade smooth. Now we're doing displacement. So we need a lot of topology, and that's why I'm bumping it up so high. And also, since we're doing displacement, we need to render in cycles. I'm going to change this to GPU compute, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to open up the shader editor, and I'm going to change this to rendered. Cool. Now, first things first, we need a noise texture. This noise texture, and also I'm going to Control T on that to give us a texture coordinate and mapping node. If that doesn't work for you, go to Edit Preferences, type in Node Wrangler, and make sure that this is enabled. Okay, the noise texture is going to define the continents and the ocean for our shader. So if I Control Shift click, it's going to show us the noise texture on our sphere. Believe it or not, these are the ocean and continents. What we need to do is define them a little bit better with a color ramp. This will help us kind of tighten up the values here. So this is going to define the oceans, and then this will help define the land. Okay, actually that looks pretty good. We have some oceans, we have some land. The black value is a representation of 0, and white values are a representation of 1, and the gray values are anywhere in between. And the shader uses those values to basically represent the height and how far to displace things. Let's go ahead and displace things now, actually. So I'm going to move this down here. I'm going to add a displacement node. I'll connect that to the displacement, and I will throw the color into the height. Now nothing happens because you need to go to the material settings and change it from bump only. I'm going to change it to displacement and bump. Booyah! We've got ice planet. Cool. Let's pull down the scale on that a bit. Now we're starting to get more of a planet. I'm going to pull down the mid-level too, maybe to right here. 2.9 looks good, and then I can scale these up to whatever stylistic size I want for the continents. Really up to you, but I mean essentially that's it. The rest of it is just coloring, really. Let's take this and let's do a little coloring. I'm going to add another color ramp. I'm going to stick that on there. And so the 0 values are the ocean, so I'm going to add some blue. Yeah. Something like that. Not like that. More like that. Yeah, saturated. And then I'm going to add a couple more colors in here. So let's have this be like a green, and then actually let's have this be a green, and I want this to be like a yellow so that we have sandy beaches. And I'm going to make this be another green. We'll play with that. And then for the very top, I want snow-peaked mountains. And then it's just a matter of pulling these around to taste. So maybe something like this. Yeah, something like this, maybe. Yeah, really up to you. Just play with it until you like it. And I think that looks pretty decent. Yeah, not bad. Cool. So I also want to show you that you can play with the noise here to get maybe like fewer continents. Now you just have like this mega Pangea continent, or you can just go hog wild and like make an archipelago. Really up to you. And then if you like this number of islands but you don't like the configuration of them, you can change like the X value on the mapping, and that'll just kind of give you a different configuration. Same with the Y, same with the Z. You can get a little weird with the rotation, and that's going to give you more of a actually I think that just rotates the islands. You can play with the scale though, and that'll give you some funk. That's like this planet is spinning, bro. Spinning. Okay. I'm just gonna zero these out. Let's get back to normal. I'm gonna pull down this scale actually. Maybe something more like this. And I'm going to just up the height a little bit, or the scale of the displacement. Cool. Now these continents are pretty smooth. I want to add a little more texture to them, so I'm gonna make another noise texture. And if we look at this, similar to the original noise texture, is just kind of really cloudy. I think I'll add another color ramp and start tightening this stuff up. And get some kind of just I don't know, add a little texture to our world. Now I need to combine our world as it is, and I want to add this texture to the continents only. I do not want any of this stuff. See how like right here we have ocean. I don't want this texture to pop things out of the ocean. And so I need to multiply these together. Color, no. Mix RGB. I'm going to mix this, and I'm going to mix this, and I'm going to multiply them. So like I said earlier, the black represents 0. Anything that is multiplied by 0 will equal 0. So our oceans, as soon as I factor that all the way up, our oceans will remain. But as you can see, we have added some texture. Oops. Here's our original planet, and now we've added some texture to the land. And then if we feed this into the factor, and we feed this into the height of the displacement, and then we connect this. Actually, let's just preview this. Okay. I don't like it as much, honestly. But we can play with it. We can fix it. Let's just do a little bit of this. There we go. Something maybe a little more like that. So now we just kind of have a little more texture to our world. And I'll like it. And let's connect it to the shader, the principled BSDF, right here, and preview that. Ooh, that's looking good. Very good. A little glossy though. Let's move up the roughness, just so it doesn't shine so hard, so harsh. And some strong edges there. I think I'll just play with this a little bit. Maybe just pull down this harsh white. No, I like the harsh white. I think it's good. Cool. Now, as for the ocean, I'm going to go back here so I can get a better look at the ocean. The ocean's really flat. I want to just add a bit of texture to it. Now, if you look at a planet from space, the ocean does look pretty flat. It doesn't look like there's a lot of texture to it. But this is a stylized planet, so let's add a little texture. First of all, I want to map out just the ocean parts. So if I get another color ramp and I feed the continent and ocean data into this, now I want all of the oceans to be white and all of the land to be black. So let's flip this color ramp and let's pull the black almost to the white. Now if we go back and forth, we can see we're basically just mapping out the water. Cool. Now what do we want to do with this? We want to add let's add a Voronoi texture. Okay, let's have a look at this. Okay, let's shrink this let's scale this way up. Way up. And then give this one its own color ramp. And I'm going to throw in I'm just going to throw in a bump right now. Bump node. I'm going to throw that on to the height and put that on the normal. Now if we look at this, cool. We have our bump node all over the planet. Now first of all, let's just look at the ocean. And it's really intense. So I actually want to maybe make that less intense by pulling down the strength, pulling down the distance. Okay. It's not making a huge difference. Let's actually lighten up this water so it's easier to see. I don't know if that makes it easier to see, but I want to kind of soften the edges on this Voronoi texture. So I'm going to do that. First I'm going to just flip this color ramp and make them kind of bubbling out instead. And then I'm going to take this value and I'm going to bring it down. That just kind of softens things up a little bit. In fact, I think I'll bring up the black a little bit. And now you can see there's just kind of a little texture. Now I don't want this texture all over the land, and that's why we have our ocean mask. We're going to do a similar thing we did before by multiplying these two color ramps together with I can just take this mix RGB, duplicate it, put that on there, put this on here, take that color, put it on the height, And now everything is just on the ocean. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to the clouds. I'm gonna make a separate shader for the clouds. Can you do clouds in the same shader? Maybe. Do I know how? No, not really. So I'm gonna make a separate shader. I'm gonna start by creating a cube, and I'm gonna add a new shader, and I have a principled BSDF on it. Going to get rid of that. I'm gonna replace it with a principled volume. Plug that into the volume, and we have clouds. Easy peasy. Let's brighten them up a little bit. And just like our continents, I want to add a noise texture. Throw the factor into the density, and that's going to start giving a little shape. I'm going to Control T on this so that we can have a little more control over our clouds later on. Similar to the continents, I want to add a color ramp here so you can start tighten up the clouds a little bit. And they're really thin. That's because really the color ramp is working with values between 0 and 1. And if we cut that and we look at the density, this value starts at 1, as you can see, and it can go very high, and it gets very thick the higher you go. And so we want to take that back down to 1. We want these values to be greater than 1 when feeding into the density. So simple fix. Math. I'm gonna make a multiply, feed this value into here, this value into the density, and then we can just multiply that by some great value, and we get thicker clouds. Cool. So we have clouds. Problem is that they're in a cube shape, and we all know that that's not physically accurate. So what do we do about that? First thing is, let's make sure that our texture coordinate is using the object for the mapping. And that means that instead of 0, 0, 0 being at this bottom left corner, 0, 0, 0 will now be in the center of our world at the origin. That's important because we need to know the length of the vector. If we're looking at the origin, the length of the vector is 0. And then all the way out to the edge, I think it's like 1.7 or 1.8. We can have a look at it. We'll get a vector math node. And I'll throw the vector into there, and I'm just going to calculate out the length. And let's get a math node, and we'll say greater than 0. I'm going to put that in there, and look at this. So remember, white is 1 and black is 0. This representation says that like all of the vector lengths are greater than 0, which is to be expected because 0 is at the very center of this cube. But as we pump this up, we start to see that the vector length at 1.3, like the white parts are still greater than 1.3 length from the center, but the black parts are shorter than 1.3 from the center. And so we can, as we kind of ease up, we can see that the corners are about 1.73 from the center of the cube. Why is this important? Because in order to get kind of a spherical shape for our clouds, we need to feed this length into, well, let's start by feeding it into a color ramp here. And then we will feed this into, let's just feed it directly into the density to keep it kind of simple. And I just Control-Shift-Click on the principled volume to see that again. And now, can we play with these values? I'm going to add another color here. And I'm going to pull that down. Cool. Now, this is starting to do what we want. Actually, I'm going to make it a little more dense. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it into this value. Get rid of this value. Put this into the density. Okay. Now we're starting to get more of a ball shape. And we can kind of play with this a little bit. Maybe pull these up. Pull this under. Now, if I were to get rid of this, for example, or if I were just to make this white, this goes all the way up. But we want kind of this ball shape, right? But we also want the clouds to kind of like not go into the planet. So we need to map this value. So we're getting between like 0 and 1.73 or something. We need to map that value. So here we're mapping from 0 to 1 to 0 to 1. But we want these values to be more like, basically we can use these values to help out our color ramp. If I were to pull this value up, for example, what happens? See, we start to get a little lift off of our planet. If I move this value down and up, see, we can just get a little extra control. Now, this is starting to look good, but it still just looks like a big fog. We need to get back to our noise texture. And how do we do that? We multiply. We're going to multiply these again. I'm going to take this over here. I'm going to create a new multiply node. I'm going to feed this into here, this into here, and then this into here, and I'm going to cut this. Now let's have a look. Cool. So what did that do? That gave us our old noise texture, and then it cut off the outside and the inside and left us with a bit of a ring. We can pump up the density there, and then it's just a matter of kind of tweaking and playing. I'm going to change this to an ease. I just feel like that kind of gives us a better cloud texture as we get to the top and the bottom. And we can just mess with these until we like it. I'm going to play with the scale of the noise to get like more clumpy clouds. Something like that. Maybe give us a little bit more there. Higher value, very thick. Maybe Yeah. Break them up a little bit more. I want them to be nice and thick. Yeah, something like that. Now you have clouds. And you can even do something like 4D here and adjust this W value to animate the clouds over time. Okay, last but not least, let's add a space or starry background. And that's actually pretty easy, probably the easiest part of this tutorial. I'm gonna go to the world and I'm gonna get rid of this. I'm going to add Voronoi texture. Throw on color ramp as usual. Put that there. Connect the distance. Hold Alt and do that. Alt there. Surface. Okay. Getting somewhere here. Move this like that. Maybe flip these. Flip the color ramp. Something more like this to get some stars, giant stars. And then you can scale this way up, and that basically gives you all the stars you need. Easy peasy. Oh, but you're gonna want to keep, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, background. You're gonna want to keep that background. You just throw that in there. And then you can play with the strength. Yeah, get that way bright. Ooh, yeah. Up to you. This is your universe. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.